absolutely, yeah. You know, I never, I never sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write a classic. I never sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write something that's going to sell. What I did was, I said, no, I'm going to take a hypothesis, an idea that's interesting to me, and I'm going to run with that. And I'm not going to rehash Seven Samurai. I'm not going to rehash African Queen, Yojimbo. I'm going to take something that excites me and interests me, and I'm going to run with that. And a lot of times,
construction upstairs,
yeah.
But go on.
Yeah, but a lot of times I fell on my face with these stories, and it's interesting because sometimes stuff that I thought would fly didn't, and things that I thought did fell on their face. I showed it to other people, and they loved it. So that's your job is really to take risks, and unless you're willing to do that, you're not going to be a great writer.
Right, and this goes to number 7, which is really close to number 6 too. Write what you want to see, not what you think is going to be a hit.
Yeah.
And what you want to see, not what's going to sell.
Yeah. Well, if you're really passionate about it and love it and excited about it, odds are that there are going to be some other people who love it and or be passionate and excited about it too. And it might not necessarily be a classic. It might not necessarily be hugely popular. But a lot of times you'll stumble on a nerve in the public and something will be a cult classic. Example of this is Zardoz. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Sean Connery, he plays, it's 300. It's like 2,300. He plays a barbarian leader in charge of a death squad who's going around shooting all these people. But as a character, he appears to be the villain and a bad guy at the first of the story. Then you realize he's growing and changing and improving as a person, even though he's in charge of a death squad. And you realize that the reason he's in charge of this death squad is because he'd rather be a killer in the society than be a victim, than be murdered. And that was his basic choice. So the movie's kind of making the point, he's not as bad as we thought at the beginning of the story. He's really half victim, half monster. And that was one of the points of the whole film. And Oliver Stone, I believe, said that that was his inspiration for most of the movies he made later on. But there are other stories like Silent Running, which was a story which was basically a love letter to nature. Let's appreciate nature. Let's take care of nature. If we don't value nature, then nature is going to be gone. We're going to pollute the planet to where there's no plants, animals, anything left alive, in the world that we live in. And that was a hypothesis. They ran with it, and it worked. It hit a nerve, and it became a cult classic. And it's interesting because at the time, it went against all the conventional thinking of how you make a science fiction movie, or even how you make a movie, period. And it worked. But it's like what Napoleon said, the only thing that counts is winning. The only rule that counts is winning. If you break all the rules and conventions of war, and you still win the battle, you win the war, hey, that's all that matters.
Right. Number 8, this can be up for interpretation. It's don't rush the story. What do you mean, don't rush the story?
Well, I think it's a mistake most filmmakers make as storytellers, is they try to always have cut, go, go, action. Whereas, you look at your really good films, your really good filmmakers, they take their time to savor the story instead of rushing it. You look at Billy Bob Thornton's film that he did, Swing Blade, where the movie moves along at a very leisurely pace. But he's savoring the experience of what's happening. He's not rushing it. He's not having flashbacks all the time, or flash forwards, or jumping around to all these different points. He's like, no, I start at point A, I go to point B, point C, point D, point F. I'm done. I've told my story. I don't jump from A to C, then back to B again. To keep moving it, to keep jumping around, to keep making it exciting. Yeah, but the thing is you look at your really good films, Gone with the Wind, you look at the classics, The Treasure of Sierra Madre, they don't rush the story. They take their time, and you get to savor the experience. And that's the trick of the cheap filmmaker, of the bad storyteller. It's like you keep zipping around all the time to try and make it interesting and exciting. But if it's a good, solid story, you don't need to do that.
Right. Number 9 here on the great storytellers checklist. Rob's switching back and forth. Okay, we're here. All right. Strip away what is not needed. If you don't need a chase scene, then don't do the chase scene, right?
Yeah. It's like what the Japanese say, strip away everything that's absolutely not essential to your story, and what you're left with is pure magic, no matter how mundane and ordinary that story might appear to be at first. And a great example of this is Tokyo Story, which is on the Uzu's best film, one of my personal favorites. And it's on, a lot of people's top 10 list or number one list of greatest films of all time. And that's why I don't give Citizen Kane, such a high rating, is because there are movies like Tokyo Story, which I love much more than Citizen Kane, and I just find this phenomenal and riveting. It's one of my personal favorites too, but it's just a story about these two parents. They haven't seen their kids in years. They go to visit them in Tokyo, and the kids blow them off. They treat them, they're rude to their parents. They don't really spend much time to them. They're not really very nice to them. And the parents have enough of it, and they leave early, and they go back to where they live. And that's the entire movie. Yet it almost moved me to tears watching it. It was so powerful. But it worked because they just absolutely stripped away everything that wasn't essential to that story. They didn't throw in a chase scene. They didn't throw in an explosion. They didn't have a flashback. None of the usual cheap tricks that you see from weak filmmakers or CGI effects everywhere.
Right.
I think we need to get back to the basics.
Well, and here's number 10. Have fun while you're writing. Believe it when it comes, you'll believe it when it comes across in your work. Kind of fun while you're writing, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is if you're having fun writing it, it'll come through in your work. It absolutely will. If you're really having fun, if you're really enjoying it, that's going to come across. I think J.R. Tolkien had a ball when he was writing The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. I think he was really having fun with it. He was really enjoying what he's doing. And if you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to do it way better than if you're just, oh my God, I got to do this again today. I don't want to do it, but I got to do it. I got to get it done. It's not going to be as powerful.
Right, which then goes to a number 11 here on the checklist. Passion, having a passion to tell the story that you want to tell and write it.
Yeah, you unless you're passionate about it, why are you doing it?
Right.
I mean, it's like snakes on a plane. You think the people who put this film together were passionate about it? They're like, no, it's creature feature theory. We have lots of animals attacking people. It's exciting. It'll sell lots of tickets. People will love it. They didn't love it. The people who were making it weren't passionate about it. And guess what? Surprise, surprise. There's no passion in the people watching it either.
Right. Now, here's a number 12 on the checklist. Be a leader, not a follower. Be an innovator. And you say here, you want people to be imitating your work, not you being the imitator.
Yeah. Well, it's like what Rob Howard said. For those of you who don't know who Robert Howard was, he wrote the Conan the Barbarian stories. And when asked, do you write like the other pulp writers who are writing these types of stories? He says, hell no, let them write like me. He wasn't imitating what other people were doing. They were imitating him. And that's the position that you want to be in as a storyteller.